Hey y'all, welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the new Vince Staples album, Crybaby. I've been looking forward to this album since the Blackberry Marmalade video dropped about a month or so ago. To me it was a surprise, so I've been really excited for it. I'm sure most of you know who Vince Staples is by now, but just in case, he's a rapper and actor from Long Beach, California. He's been releasing music for about 15 years now, and this is his 9th album. This album sees another change in direction with his sound, but simultaneously returning to something similar that he's done previously on like his early albums, like Summertime '06 and Hell Can Wait. He does kind of take it to new heights, and he's really leaning into a more rock-inspired sound, with most tracks prominently featuring electric guitars and live drums. In fact, this entire album was actually recorded using live instrumentation as opposed to sampling and loops and things like that. So getting into the album, the cover is a red background with a little pink cartoon baby that's sitting in the center and he's crying. And the baby has an American flag for a diaper. And the album isn't incredibly long. It's got about 10 tracks, but only at about 35 minutes long. The first track on the album is Blackberry Marmalade, which was released as the first single for the album. I already went over the track and the music video back when it first came out. That I'll link down in the description for you to watch. Next is the track Go Go Gorilla, which feels like it could be the title of an anime. It has this raw and energetic sound that really just makes you want to dance. And it has a pretty sharp bass or guitar. I can't tell if it's a bass with effects or a guitar with the pitch dropped down like Jack White's guitar on Seven Nation Army. The energetic and danceable vibe that it has is contrasted by the lyrics, which cover some pretty dark subject matter. Things like police brutality, including a personal account of getting chokeslammed at the age of 12, witnessing a murder, as well as redlining and gentrification. The song ends with this little segment where there's monkeys screaming, which fades into some Velvet Underground inspired noise rock, which then fades into some police sirens as the track closes out. Next is the track White Flag, which was released as the second single. It has a percussive and rhythmic beat with a groovy bass line, but overall it's fairly minimalist. The bass line on this track sounds similar to the bass line from Benny King's Stand By Me, but I think it may just be due to how the kick drum lines up with the bass notes. It's a pretty soulful track, but it's also kind of melancholic as he describes watching love turn to war. It really just has a gloomy feel to it. Next is the track The Running Man. This track has fast-paced instrumentals, and Vince's vocals have these effects that sound like he's rapping through a megaphone. It's also fairly dynamic, as just over halfway through, the energy and tempo slow way down, and his vocals don't have the effects anymore. But then it picks back up in energy and intensity for about the final 20 or 30 seconds. Next is TV Guide. These fuzzy, distorted synths are prominently featured on this track, which really sounds like buzzing TV static. The lyrics describe the never-ending doom cycle of the news and how it penetrates our subconscious. It often plays a role in how people form their beliefs and worldviews. It also alludes to how the news can be an outlet for spreading propaganda, with lyrics like, "I think the television's controlling me," and "Must be true, it's on TV." Next is The Big Bad Wolf, which is actually a really cool track. It begins with this wolf howl before diving into a chaotic and funky beat. And it uses various samples from Slick Rick's children's story throughout the entire song. And it has just a wild flow and delivery. This track definitely has some of the best rapping on the entire album. Also, I wanted to note that I was pretty excited when I heard scratching on this track, as that's pretty uncommon these days in hip-hop. Next is the track Only in America, which has these thumping, bass-heavy instrumentals. And it has this hypnotic and catchy beat that's fairly fast-paced. Near the beginning of the song, there's a quick line where he says, "Speech not necessarily free," which I can't agree with more. In the US, we're supposed to be able to criticize our government without fear of consequence, but we've been seeing more and more cases of the federal government trying to silence its critics. And it's not only trying to silence critics of our own government, which we have every right to do so, it's also trying to silence critics of foreign nations. Oddly enough. Weird, huh? And some people are actually cheering it on just because they disagree with the critics or with the ideas that are being suppressed. But I remember a time not long ago when real patriots would say, "I may not agree with what you're saying, but I'll die defending your right to say it." Next is the track Do You Know the Devil? It has fuzzy production as all the instruments, including Vince Staples' voice, sound pretty distorted and a little rough around the edges. It's moody and atmospheric, and it even sounds a little like it was inspired by 80s new wave. It's overall just a pretty dark and emotive track. Next is the track Cotton, which is the third and final single that was released before the album came out. The pulsing drum beat, along with the piano, electric guitar, and spacey synths, as well as the background vocals, make this a pretty layered production. The lyrics describe his love for music and how he can always rely on it to lift him up out of dark times. And I think being the second to last track on the album is the perfect placement for this, as it's a glimmer of hope in a rather bleak album, at least in terms of its subject matter. But it's only a brief glimmer of hope, as the next track on the album is yet again another bleak and desolate track. Which leads us to the final track on the album, 7 in the Morning. My first thought before even hearing the track was maybe that he'd be sampling Ice-T's 6 in the Morning just based off the title. That was not the case, but this track has a heavy kick drum with an eerie synth tone that sort of sounds like a whistle. It has a militaristic theme to it with the left, 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 right, left chant in the chorus, as well as the various references to war and the different military ranks and terms. Near the end of the song, there's this clicking noise that almost sounds like a tape skipping, but then you hear these faint screams and realize that it's actually muffled gunfire. This is an incredible album that's focused in its themes and messaging. It feels like a very cohesive body of work. Using live instrumentation, I think, worked greatly to this album's benefit, giving it a raw and resonant sound that really complements the ideas explored on it. I feel like this can't really be classified as a hip-hop album. It really has more post-punk and alt-rock instrumentals, but it also has so many hip-hop elements to the point where you can't really rule it out of that category either. I highly recommend this album. There's a lot to explore, a lot to discuss with it, and you get something new after each listen, really. But that's all I've got to say about this album for now. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.